Hello, I'm Kathleen McDermott, and you're listening to Your Life, Your Way. I'm here to remind you that you are not alone. I know life's challenges can be freaking hard, and life can feel like we are on one wild roller coaster ride. My guests and I are here to inspire you to embrace the possibilities, because you can get off that wild ride and absolutely create a life that you love waking up to every day, because your life is your gift to live your way. Good morning. Happy December 1st. I am thrilled to welcome you to Your Life, Your Way podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen McDermott, and I could not be more excited to present to you today, to have with us today, to share her journey, Jessica Johnston. Jessica is a wellness mentor and an absolute world changer, and she absolutely can carry that title because her journey has just been amazing. She has over a decade of experience in the spa and wellness industry. I am absolutely in love with her energy, her authenticity, her strength. She is a mom, and we always love mom stories. So I hope she'll share maybe a mom story today. She has had a journey. She has had a journey with overcoming a challenge that I'm going to let her share with you. I'm thrilled to have her here. I'm going to let her take it over. Jessica Johnston, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Please tell us, who is Jessica and where have you been and where are you and where are you going?
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I really love nothing more than sharing, because what you don't know, you don't know. So I'm going to share, just like you said, a little bit about my experience and, where I'm headed and how I hope, like you, to serve others. So thank you for having me. I am a small town girl. I am from Wheeling, West Virginia, and born and raised. And that is where I spent my 12 and a half years in the spa and wellness industry at a local resort. And our family just recently moved to the Pittsburgh area for my husband's job. We have two boys. They are 9 and 12, very active, very wild. Our days are what I like to use as full, very full. And it is the most loving, fulfilling thing that I've ever done in my life. So it's been amazing to be a mom. Through those last years, that last decade, I have spent time in the spa and wellness industry, where I have a lot of industry leader friends who have focused and paved the way for a healthier lifestyle and creating a lifestyle that can be consistent. And they've shared with me all of that information and help me understand how I can now share that forward. And that was also very crucial for me in my lymphoma battle. I was diagnosed just a little over 2 years ago, and I had my treatments in Pittsburgh. So now that we live here, I'm much closer to my hospital and all my doctors.
Much more convenient.
Much more convenient, yes. Happy to report I'm clear. Everything is good. My treatments were not by any means easy, but I learned a lot from them. And that particular part of my life is what's going to accelerate and grow the future. So I'm really, really, really excited to see how everything pulls together with my spa and wellness experience and my battle through the lymphoma and my chemo treatments, and how I can pull it all together and integrate those two worlds and share that forward for others that may be battling the same thing.
It almost leaves me speechless, because the way that you word it is, it just opens the door to so much that where do you begin to share? You must have, I know quite often I feel like I have so much to share, but where do you begin? So where do you begin to share to inspire other women?
That's actually an excellent question. I don't know that I have an actual answer for that. It's one of those things where I just wake up each day and I say, thank you for waking me. I'm just happy to have life. I'm happy to be healthy. I'm happy to have a warm home and food and provide for our family the way we can. And then I just ask, how can I best serve? And I've kind of just let that be my question. There's a point of thanks first thing in the morning, and then there's a point of question. Okay, now what? Like, help me out here, guide me. And I have a very strong faith in God, and I very clearly had impacts from him before I was ever diagnosed. I mean, I dropped to my knees in our living room. I was in so much pain, weeks and weeks and weeks of testing and surgery and all this stuff. And we weren't getting answers. And I remember being in so much pain. I dropped to my knees and I just bawled my eyes out. And finally I was like, okay, get it together. We have to figure this out. We can't just crumble. That does no good for anybody. So I just went, whoop, I'm going to just surrender it all the way up, wherever it needs to go, whatever direction it needs to head, whatever answers, I'm surrendering it all and I'm going to let it go. And I'm just going to have faith that it's going to work.
May I ask, how do you, when you reach that point where you crumbled and you, as we call it, lost it, or just finally just felt so much overwhelm, how long were you in that place of overwhelm? Because I know sometimes, sometimes it's more common than not, it's that we get stuck in that place of suffering. We get stuck so deep into the fear that we just, it seems like a black hole. We can't find our way out. But how long were you in that place of suffering before you said, okay, I'm just going to release it and I'm just going to be guided?
So for that exact moment, I was probably crumbled to the ground for at minimum like a half an hour. Like I just couldn't stop it. It just kept coming and coming. But in the grand scheme of all of it, I had been dealing with trying to figure out what was going on with me for over 9 months. Okay. I was almost at a year at that point when it wasn't showing anything. Nothing was happening. The only thing you could see or feel were the little bumps all around my jawbone, down my neck, and my collarbones. Like they were everywhere, but there wasn't an answer. So it was it was months and months and months. And then finally it was like about 2.5 weeks of excruciating pain. I was at the point where I couldn't even turn my head. And I couldn't take it anymore. I have a high pain tolerance. And I was to the point where I was just crying all day long and popping Tylenol. And I'm not a medicine taker. But I didn't know what else to do. I had no other answer. So I was kind of like you said, like stuck in that black hole of like, I had a very strong feeling that it wasn't the end of, I knew I was going to be okay. And that might sound weird. But deep down in my gut, I knew that something was up, but I knew that I was going to be okay. And I don't know if it was the matter of just finally like, okay, I can't control this. I can't get answers. So I have to let you take it and put it in the right time, in the right place, in the right hands, in all the right circumstances, because I know I'm going to be okay. I just don't know what it is.
Do you find
that makes any sense?
It makes total sense, because there's times that we almost, in my opinion, it feels like there are times that I have fought so much. It's so much. You build these walls, you put up this self-protection, which ends up blocking answers. It ends up blocking what you are supposed to hear and listen and discover. And
Yes.
once you do say, okay, to whatever source you feel with,
Right.
it just opens the door to let the answers come in, to actually hear and see them. Is that how you felt?
Oh, most definitely. And I know I touched on this just a minute with you before we started, but another friend actually said to me, so what you're saying is, if I'm understanding you right, is I had explained everything I had gone through and all the appointments and all the, nutritionists I saw and our wellness doc and just all the alternatives you could possibly think of. I was just grabbing for any of it because I wasn't getting answers. And she said, so what you're saying to me is you are one of the most positive people I've ever seen or met. But yet, during this time, you were focused on finding the negative and the wrong because you knew something else was there, but you were still positive about it. But you were looking for the negative. And I'm like, yeah, that's
spoken like a human. Yes.
It's exact. That's
Yes.
exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you and I've talked about this before too, but my life continued to get more and more noisy and more and more noisy and more noisy and more busy and more busy and more noisy. And it was a vicious circle. And I felt like I was drowning in it, really, now that I look back. So once I was just like, clearly, I mean, anybody that's seen pictures, the bump on the side of my neck, you couldn't miss it. Nor could you miss the fact that I couldn't turn my head or that I was crying all day in pain. I mean, it was written everywhere, but there was no definitive answer. So a week after I just dropped to the ground and let it go. And I said, I have to let it go. You have to take it. I need answers. Something has to give. A week later, I had my diagnosis.
What a relief. What a relief. At the same time,
yes.
It's scary. It's a relief to now you finally can develop a plan of how to move forward.
Exactly. And that was exactly what it was. It was not what we wanted to hear by any means, but we had an answer. And then at that point, I already had in my arsenal who I was going to be referred to. My insurance was covering it. This is what was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And we were on our way. Literally the same day, hours after my diagnosis, I was transported straight to that new hospital in Pittsburgh and with a specialist, and off we went.
How do you find, as women, we are in this influence programming, whatever word we want to use, of we have to be and do a certain way. And that applies so much pressure. Mm-hmm. And you're a mom. So mm-hmm. you're dealing with your illness, but then you are a mom and you want to set an example and not scare your children and your husband. But as a mom, mm-hmm. how did you balance that? To relieve the stress of having to be a certain way to go through this, stay positive, and yet have your kids see that mom is strong and yet mom can break down too. How did you ride that ebb and flow of being human, being a mom, right. being a woman?
We honestly, it really came down to my husband and I talking through all of it very clearly and having a plan that we felt was best for our family. The four of us in our home, what was going to be the best scenario, the most positive, the most strong, the most loving, the most calm scenario we could offer to the boys who were at the time 10, and 7.
Old enough to understand. To a certain
Old
point, what
enough
was
to
going on.
understand, but still as an adult, we don't fully understand where this diagnosis comes from. Like there's just so much question around this one particular word and diagnosis. There's so much I don't even know the right word, scared around it. I mean, it's terrifying. So we did what we felt was best. And the boys knew that I had been, getting blood work and seeing other nutritionists and our chiropractor who our family already saw for years prior to. We started with him when our youngest was like 3.5.
Wonderful.
He needed it first, and then it kind of was the lead way into, the rest of us stepping into that world. We sat them down and we just said, we don't know. We want you two to sit here and we want you two to understand. We want you to be okay to ask questions. We need you two to know that we don't know. We know something. And my husband said it so graciously. He said, we know something's wrong with mommy. We can see it. You can see the neck, like my neck. You can see the bump. We don't know what it means. And your mom and I are going to continue to fight through all of these things until we have an answer and we have a goal and a solution, and we're on our way to getting mommy to feel better. And they were like, okay, we can do that. And he said, it's going to require the two of you to step up and to help, because we're not sure what's going to happen. We don't know. So we just need you two to be flexible. We need you two to stay strong, just stay on your regular schedule as much as possible, and say your prayers and just love big. That's all we can do.
Big. Oh, I love that.
And they both were like, okay, we can do that. And
oh, beautiful.
My parents lived 2 miles from us, and my mom and dad were right there anytime we needed them. My in-laws, they lived further away, but they were still available to us anytime. Whatever we needed, they could be there. So when we finally, they would leave for school some days, and I wouldn't be home when they came back. I would be in the hospital overnight having surgery unexpectedly. So there was some gray areas and question marks in terms of, I don't know, I'm leaving mom this morning, but I don't know if she's going to be home when I get back. And we always made sure to communicate with cell phones or do video chats or whatever it was to make them feel comfortable through all of those things. So
beautiful.
We did what we thought was best at the time.
That's all you
and
can
it
do.
worked
And
for us.
And it was best for your family. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So where did that bring you? Where are you now? What is it? You've heard people say, oh, well, my cancer or my this or my that was a gift. What is your discovery through it all about you?
Mm-hmm. What a unexpected blessing, I think I would say. You don't look at those hard times when you're in it and go, man, this is great. This is gonna really like knock it to the park for the next chapter. You don't think those things, don't. Right? So, I mean, through all of it, again, going back to the fact that I'm just a positive person. Going through it, I always looked at it as like, why am I in this space? Not in terms of why me and wanting to like keep myself down, but in terms of why am I in this space, there has to be a reason. What is that reason? What am I meant to learn while I'm in this space? What am I meant to do to share and serve and get what I've learned by personally being in a situation like that with others that can maybe help their battle? So I looked at it not necessarily at that time, but as an opportunity to serve other people. Really.
Agree
I mean,
completely.
I went into it with such an army surrounding me, and I have no doubts with my faith in God, like, grew exponentially. I knew anytime I started to break down, it was like, shoop, inserted, shoop, the right conversation, shoop, the right person, all the things just always ended up coming through. And, when you have one small baby positive step at a time, you start to accelerate into, like, get more and more excited, and things you start to see, they're better and better, and you start to see all those visions, and you see all those signs and all those things. And that was really what happened. Was I got a crappy diagnosis that was not what you want to hear, but then it continued to unfold. I'm not saying I didn't have challenges. I was readmitted for blood clots, and I went through all the things, but I had such an army around me to support my healthy lifestyle, my healthy immune system, all the resources, everything I had prior to the diagnosis, that once it happened, I was okay. I can focus on just healing and getting better and battling and sharing and taking in information that can keep my mind busy in other angles instead of thinking all day about just what I'm doing at that second.
And that brings me back to, if you could help our listeners understand how you took, because we are all inundated 24/7 with noise. And the noise isn't just the noise out in the world, it's the noise in our heads. And how did you go from recognizing that the noise was not helping you, that it was not serving you? And how did you go to realize that it was not serving, and how you had to make a change? And how did you make that change? It's not hard as women, it's very hard to not constantly do and care for others and feel the obligations and the responsibilities. So how did you change? What did you decide didn't serve you anymore?
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is that probably on a daily basis, once I was diagnosed, I was in the hospital for 5 days, 3 days of chemo, back to back to back. They sent me home, and everybody went back. My husband went to work, my kids went to school. Here I am, home alone. I've never been home alone. I am clearly an outgoing person. I love to be around people. I love to love, I love to have friendships and relationships. So for me to sit at home 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it was a blessing. It was the most amazing time through the whole thing. The silence was there, and it was like I could take a deep breath and be like, all right.
A full deep breath from the belly. Yes.
Like the deepest breath I have maybe ever taken in my life. And I just sat in the silence, and I realized, my faith was rocking and rolling. And then came along that whole trust piece of like, yeah, okay, this is it. This is literally where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to sit here quietly. I was able to work from home. I still worked full time through all my treatments. Thank goodness for Zoom and virtual friendships, because I could just get on and connect with people or disconnect quickly if I wanted to. But the silence piece is really where the magic happened, if you will. My mom, like I was saying, my mom every day would call me because she was worried. Jessica, you don't do silence. You don't like quiet. You don't like to be by yourself. That's not you. Are you okay? Every day, like clockwork, she would call me and check in, show up at the front door. I brought you lunch, because she was worried that the silence was going to drag me down into a hole. When really, all that noise from the past almost got like popped in the face and told to step back, because it was time for the silence. It was time for me to have some time for me, have some rest, keep myself strong so that I could battle through it. And I gave up all of that control, like you were saying, as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, period. We think we have to do all the things. And God bless my husband, because he stepped right in and did anything and everything that kept the day smooth for the kids, that he knew I always did, without a question. No questions asked. And I could stay in bed all day if I had to. I could take naps. I could read a book. I could do nothing. I could snuggle with the kids. I could just hang out and talk with him. Like, there was no extra stuff.
And the world didn't fall apart because you weren't on top of everything, in control of everything.
Exactly.
The world did not fall apart.
Exactly. It was still there. And it was a whole kind of flip of your mindset. You have to have I always say, mind over matter. There were multiple times in a situation, having a PICC line put in through my arm, into my heart, and the veins, all the things that you could really freak yourself out by. And I distinctively remember laying on that bed that day when the nurse came to my room to put it in. And I kept saying to myself, mind over matter, mind over matter. You're in this second, you're okay in the second. Now you're in this second, and you're okay in this second. And you're in this second, and now you're okay in this second. Like, I broke it down by seconds. And
that's a very good point. Very good point. To take a second, not just a moment, but the second and then the next second. I like that. I've not heard that put that way before.
Well, and the thing too that I always reminded myself was that if I thought about the past and the annoyance or the hard time that you have dealing with the fact that you beat yourself to this place, or stress, or whatever, life, the noise, all the things, and now you have to deal with this diagnosis and all these things. If you think about the past, or on the opposite, if you think about the future, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So why put yourself there? If you just stay present in this, and for me, it was per second some days. This second, all right, cool. And then the second, yep, I'm doing good. And then it would be like 5 minutes or an hour or whatever. But if I stayed present, there was nowhere for anxiety and stress and the unknown to come in and script in your brain what's not actually true.
Oh, love that. In the brain, that's true, because so much of what goes on in our brain is never true.
Right.
It never happens.
Right. So you have to let it go. Who cares if the house is dirty? Who cares if your laundry's not done? Who cares? Just be glad to be alive. Do you have a roof over your head? Are the people in your house healthy? Do they love each other? Are they kind? Like, that's all. That's it.
And that's a
That's it.
beautiful thing.
That's it. That's all I care about. And I tell the boys that all the time. I'm like, boys, kindness. Be kind. Be kind, be kind, be kind. Smile. Say hi. Be friendly. You don't know what somebody else is battling.
This is true. We don't.
You don't. So just
So,
be
so,
kind.
so with this legacy that you're leaving your boys, where are you now? What are you doing now and moving forward and continuing in the legacy? What are you doing?
I am working on bringing together some wellness in oncology, creating my own brand. I'm working on a program specifically with my oncologist so that he can pass my information to other patients. And then also with our chiropractor, our wellness doctor, same thing. He, deals with a lot of people going through treatments as well. So they want to be able to hand off my information, my one-on-one mentoring, whatever that looks like. I'm still working on it, to their patients specifically, because I feel like I have to go to that world where I was, where that is kind of like such a question mark. Like, why was there's no history of that in my family, but I have to look for the purpose in why I was there. So there's a reason why I was there. So now I have to go to that space and help other people. And then I'm also working on bringing my podcast to life so that I can, clearly, you all can tell, I have a lot to say.
And we love listening. You're such an inspiration.
So I plan on bringing that to life. And, the last several months since resigning from my job and my husband getting his job and us adjusting the kids and all those things.
And hockey.
I really took in hockey, travel hockey, all the fun things. I really looked at this as my season of play or my season of rest, because again, I worked full time from home through my job, through my treatments. A month after my last treatment, the world shut down. My particular department closed for 2 months because of the type of work we did. And I went right back to the office June 1. So I was only a few months out of treatment and I went right back to work in office. And this was like my time to take a break. I prayed for this time for a very, very long time, many years, where I just wanted to take a break and breathe and just focus on the family and bring my dreams to life. And that's what I'm going to do.
Bring your dreams to life. Absolutely. Absolutely. And on that note, if other women would like to reach out to you, and men, maybe some men might be having another family member go through, how might they be able to reach out to you and talk more about what you do and maybe give some pointers on what they are looking for in support? How might they reach out to you and have a conversation?
Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram, and all my information is on there. Messenger. I can give you specific links if you want to put them in the podcast notes so that they can refer back. I'm happy to do that too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And
I would
any
love
last finishing words you would like to share before we sign off?
Just love yourself and love others. Love big. That's
big.
my
Beautiful.
thing. Just love big. You have to really be honest with yourself. And that's hard.
Trust.
And then you can get yourself on the right path. And it's not always easy, but like you and I talked about, it's through the struggles that you find your strength and your meaning.
I know,
sometimes.
Having been in that dark hole, not your particular dark hole, but mine, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a topic we will continue to share and cover in Your Life, Your Way, because I don't know what it is, but we managed to find our biggest strengths and grace and fire and courage in the darkest times.
Yep.
I don't know why. Sometimes I wish, could it just be a little bit easier? But where's the fun in that?
Right. Right.
Well, Jessica, I cannot say the words aren't enough to say thank you. It seems so small, but I am just so thrilled that you've joined us today and shared your journey and being that inspiration for others. And I absolutely, truly believe that every time a woman shares her story, it automatically goes out and touches someone somewhere to help them on their journey and hopefully to tell their story. So I thank you so much. Enjoy hockey. I know hockey is, having been in soccer travel, it's all year round. It's a life and it's beautiful. I miss it today. So enjoy. Thank you so much. And I hope at some point you'll come back and share some more.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me, and thank you for listening. Kathleen, it's been an absolute pleasure again. I love chatting with you.
And again, Jessica Johnston, thank you so much. Look for her on Facebook, Instagram, and we will definitely have more Jessica with us. Peace and blessings. Have a wonderful day. Wow, I had a few takeaways from today's episode with Jessica Johnston. Number 1, love big. Number 2, I'm okay in this second. Number 3, bringing your battles and your wins together to serve others. And number 4, gratitude for life and ask how I can serve. What were your takeaways today? If you enjoyed our episode and found it inspiring and you think it might inspire others, please share with your family and friends. And I would just love if you would please leave a 5-star review. If you can find that in your heart, I would be forever grateful. If you would like to know more about me and my work, Yogalosophy, YOGI-losophy, you can visit www.yogalosophy.method.com. I wish you an inspiring, joyful, exciting day. Hope your coffee is always hot. Peace and blessings.